Hello again, and welcome back for our weekly tutorial videos on Linden scripting language. As usual, I am Becca, going by Nightcat or Nightcat's Meow when online. And we have two things on the agenda today. One is we have a request to discuss how my changing picture is done. I'll show you that more closely in a minute, just to make sure everybody knows what I'm talking about. And we're also going to do one more little finishing touch on this book that's going to make it much more easy to use if you have a lot more pictures in it. So, since the method I'm going to use for that will actually be relevant for the pictures, let's go ahead and deal with that. We'll just take the same book as last week, pop that sucker open. The only part we're really going to be playing around with are the pages, whereas count is determining which of the two versions it's running. We're going to change that to only run one version. Now, to do that, we're going to have to manage things up in here. This is a space for arguments that we haven't actually used before. It's always been there, but we haven't actually used it. So we're going to put in, as you see up here, the keys are handled as keys. They were simply identified as page 1 through 4. So that's what we're going to need. Key. Let's make it easier. Right, comma, key, left. What this means is that when you run the page command that we created with this, you're going to be able to specify two different keys, which this is going to process as right and left. And where we're going to put those are going to be right in these spots. So right here we have page 4. That will be left. Down here, page 3. That will be right. And then we're not going to need to play with count there. And here it was to set the specific ones to hold so that they would prepare for when they were going to appear. They would preload. So we're going to add key load 1, key load 2. Load 1, load 2. And we're not even going to need the rest of this one down here, which means we're not going to need that because that was to contain the if statement here, which we no longer need. This should compile nicely. Here's why it didn't compile nicely. That's because down here it's sending the page call. So page 1, comma, page 2, comma, page 3, comma, page 4. That's just simply setting all of those into the same slots they would have up here. The first one goes to the first variable up here, key right. Second one to key left. Load 1, load 2, in the same order. We have those. All right. So it's not changing anything because we have those already set up. Now, what you're going to do is down here we're going to trigger the page turn. Now we're going to move all the control for changing those images down into here. So we already have the count set up there. If count is absolutely equal to 0. Count equals 1. Return. Else if count equals 1. Paste. But this time we want 3, 4, 1, 2, count equals 0, return. Oh, it appears I did one thing wrong in there, and there it is. I accidentally duplicated page 3 instead of page 3 and page 4. There you go. This is much easier this way to expand it to however many pages you want. If you had 12 different ones, you would just have 6 different of these little procedures. Much, much, much simpler. Much easier to expand. And as promised, I finally showed you exactly what you can do with those little spots right there. You can stick your own variables up there and have them affect the code here. And that's going to be very relevant for the next little project we're going to show you. Okay, sorry for the awkward cuts there. I'm having a bit of a problem with that removable drive again, and I'm having to re-record part of this. I'm trying it on a different drive, fingers crossed that this actually takes this time. But we had finished talking about the upgrade to the book, and we were now discussing, as promised, how to actually make a fading picture frame like the one I have over here. As I will usually do in these weeks lately, is I will show the simplest method of achieving the desired result, and then in ensuing weeks, in order to keep the videos less complicated and shorter, I will go into how to upgrade it. So, without further ado, this project, like so many others, begins with a Mark I cube. In this case, you want to just sort of adjust it to the size of picture you're looking for, and then shift drag to make a second one, link them together. As with many things that are dealing with faces and individual parts, you're going to want to know which link number and face number you're dealing with. So we'll just come in here, turn that into an owner say. Link. All right. We're also going to want to copy that, save it. What did I just do wrong? Right, I forgot to put the variable, since it has to know which in a potential series of those it is. I also forgot to put in the plus. I did mention that due to some technical difficulties with the drive that I store the videos to while I'm recording them, that I've had to do this a few times, so please forgive some minor frustration-induced trouble. Link 1, face 1. Delete. Paste. Save. Link 2, face 2. Or, sorry, link 2, face 1. Speaking stupid. Words hard. Words hard, code easy. That is a statement that out of context will make absolutely no sense to anyone. The easiest way to make sure that we're dealing with the correct parts here is to pop back to the book we've been working on. Just borrow the same texture keys you were using there. Just for making sure that all the pieces are working correctly. As you've been following these videos, you know that I prefer to code up each individual section on its own and then go through and improve from there. Add new features as we go. So go ahead and establish that there will be a fade option. We're also going to need to know whether the front part here is actually meant to be visible or not. So we're going to need a variable for that. Integer front equals true. So for the moment, dealing with this, every time that the fade call is triggered, we're just going to automatically flip it from one to the other. So if front equals true, set alpha. Since we're doing this in the root, in the front, you don't need to do a link. But just in case you're not using just those, we can say link alpha. Link number 1 to 0 for none or no visibility. Face 1. Front equals false. Return. Else. One all the way on. Face 1. Front equals true. Return. So the first thing we've set up is just to simply pop it between visibility and invisibility. That part worked just fine. Now we want to start rolling in the textures themselves. So how are we going to do that? Well, we're also going to pass that up to here. So we're going to give it a key, pic, short for picture. And then we're going to set it in the case of here with front equals false. That means we'll be looking at the one on the back. Set link texture. Since we'll be looking at the one on the back, since the front is set to completely transparent or 0 opacity. So set link texture, link number 1 to the chosen pic on face 1. In this case, we're just going to set that to 2. Of course, we're going to now have to send a specific one there. So we're going to test it by setting them both to page 1. So you see, it set it to this one when it went alpha. I'll prove that to you. Setting them to default. We're going to force. Yep, there it is. So we know we're successfully transmitting the correct texture. Great. But we don't want to just have it always be the one. So we're going to incorporate additional ones to deal with all of these. But we're going to want to track which one is on. So we'll need another integer. Integer pick equals 1. If pick equals 1, fade page 2. So we're basically loading up the second picture. Pick equals 2. Return. Didn't mean to cut. I meant to copy. Paste. Since this is not the only, it's the second possible option, so we're making that an else. If pick equals 2, we send the third page and change pick to 3. Please ignore my overzealous 4 to 3. So we set that to 4 and 4. And lastly, if pick equals 4, we take them back to 1. Yep, different picks there. You see, every time when this comes back, it changes the one back here. Why do we do that? Because when we get this to fade, this will hide any of the load in for the picture behind it. When it's invisible, it can load its texture in and you won't see it. So, next, I pet my cat. But after I pet my cat, sorry, she just showed up while I was recording, we're going to create a for loop. All right, your for loop needs a base starting number to work with. In this case, we're making a float or a decimal for I. So make the for loop I equals 1. Semicolon, because this is like completing a command. We're going to be controlling the set link alpha, and that ranges from 1 to 0. So 1 is 100% opacity. You can absolutely see it. You cannot see through it. Absolutely. Completely opaque. Completely not transparent. Then, as long as I is greater than or equal to 0, this loop will continue running, continue iterating. And for each iteration, I equals I minus 0.05. So we're going to reduce it by 0.05 or 5% of 1 every time that this loop iterates. There we go. So now instead of set link alpha to 0, we're setting link alpha to I, which will run through, and then it will do everything else that it was already doing. Let's see what the script compiler says. It says it's compiled. Oh, that looked pretty fast. So, let us put in a delay. That is a 1/10 of a second delay. It will pause for 1/10 of a second every time it cycles through there. And there you have a fade. Let's make that last a little bit longer. Let's reduce that to 0.02 or 2% of its opacity each cycle. That looks like it. You can, of course, play with it yourself to dial in the magic number where you want it. But then all you have to do for the other side is copy and paste your for loop. But this time, I starts at 0 as long as I is less than or equal to 1, it's plus 0.02. And there you have it. That's how to create a fading picture frame. Please come back next week when we will upgrade this and I will show you how to read the files directly from your frame's inventory as opposed to having to hard code them in advance. As always, please leave a like or comments. They do a lot of good for me. And I will continue to upload these every Tuesday by noon. Thank you all very much. Have a good day, good week, and happy coding.